Let's talk about the President's State of the Union address last night. Did he come across as there were so many predictions he was going to be, lay out his political campaign. Did you feel like it was as big a political speech as some expected? I know this is his agenda. This is what he wants to do, but I didn't get the direct feeling this was some campaign speech. Was I wrong?
Well, I don't know. Any president giving a State of the Union heading into a re-election year, a re-election year, which this is going to have the question whether it's political or whether it's policy. To me, the focus was always the fact that he comes from a philosophical premise, unfortunately, that views the economy as a zero-sum game, where a centralized bureaucratic elite in Washington is going to determine who wins and who loses. He's going to continue tax and spend policies that don't work. In short, what you're looking at is the politics of the past, as opposed to something that's more adaptable, more helpful to stimulating this economy and allowing entrepreneurs and workers to grow it. It's the 21st century, and yet that speech that he gave could have easily been given in 1975.
And yet he sounds very convincing when he gives it. He's one of the great orators that we've had when he gets on a teleprompter like that. And last night he was on his game. There's no question about that. But it's what he says that has other people saying, Mr. President, we have a basic disagreement about this. You want big government to do it. You want more taxation. You want more money and jobs centered around Washington. And we don't feel that way, and that's going to continue to be the battle. As he said last night, he can work with Republicans, he can work with anybody on a bipartisan basis, but then he also gave a stark warning. He said, if you won't pass these initiatives of mine, he says, I'll do it on my own. There's not a lot of compromise there.
Well, look, again, I think you're right. It's a self-contradictory speech. You can see it when he talks about, some people will call it class warfare, and then he immediately proceeds to go into class warfare. I personally didn't like the way that he butchered the Lincoln quote, deliberately paraphrasing it to the point where it allowed for big government, which was not Lincoln's point. Lincoln's point was government should do for people what they cannot do for themselves. The president instead has decided that it's going to be what they can't do better for themselves by themselves. I would, if I was him, I'd send a letter to my Ivy League friends and say, you really got to do a better teach your history than you've done so far. The problem that we have, Frank, is not only are the philosophical premises wrong, the president starts to continue to go on and on and on about what he wants government to do, at the same time talking about how the painful restructuring of the auto industry was necessary. I would urge him to look at what was done with the auto industry and how hard it was for us in Michigan to go through, and how necessary it was for us to get smaller, more efficient, flatter, less bureaucratic, less top-heavy, so that we could compete globally. Because everything that he did to the auto industry with the help of President Bush is exactly what he's avoiding doing with the federal government. I can't understand why, because you're going to have to do the same thing here, and it's going to happen, as you and I have talked about, except he continues to resist the tide of freedom and entrepreneurism, which is necessary.
And by the way,
continue to be the world's economic engine.
And by the way, it wasn't his beloved green cars that brought the industry back either. They remain low sellers.
It was the men and women of the auto industry that have first and foremost borne the brunt of this, that have struggled through this, and have put us in a position to be globally competitive today. And I think any politicians, I supported this as much as the president did. We had bipartisan support for this. That continues to act as if it was government that did this. No, it's the men and women who went through it and continue to go through it every day that have made this successful and give us hope for the future.
Congressman Thaddeus McCotter, always good to talk with you. Be well. We'll talk again soon.